and awkward endings, by the way. It's like a feature.
Okay.
That ding means that, boom, we're live. And welcome, everybody. So,
proud to smile. I'm so excited right now.
well, I see a huge woo. I see some high yells. I see, so it looks like we got a good crowd in here at the moment. Mr. Cordy Chip feels naked. Believe me, at least you're not on the video. But
my lower half is actually basically naked.
Yeah.
Not that I can see. It's too hot. It's too hot.
I can't stand up. Nobody's gonna be able to take the shot. But
oh wait, hold on a second. Yes. Wait a second. Hold on.
Hold on.
Let me delete that. Wait. Oh, sorry. I'm learning this. Sorry. Did I mess everything up? Okay. Sorry. I'm back.
Wow. I love it. You're almost as awkward as I am. It's fantastic.
I'm such an awkward human being.
Oh, that's the only way to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey everyone. So today we actually have a non-YouTuber. I mean, we occasionally have non-YouTubers on.
Sorry.
Not sorry at all. No, it's actually good. I want to so just in terms of quick thing with the whole setup at the moment. So Victor, of course, we're switching to Saturday nights from now on. So this Sunday at 11 o'clock, we'll be re-kicking off with Victor. Probably getting Atomic Boy X, talking about if we can get him on. I've got to reach out to him, by the way, but we're going to get him as the reboot first guy and talking about Nichome and gay culture in Japan. That'd be awesome. But for today, I actually ran into Miss Mariko Lockridge at the YouTube space.
Yes.
And basically the people call Victor, the godfather of YouTube, but the actual godfather of YouTube said, hey, you two should make a video together. and left us. We kind of it was kind of like being set up on an awkward kind of blind date, wasn't it?
It really was. And it was like both of us didn't know what to say. And then Dave was at Shoot Tokyo was so insistent. Like he literally dragged me to the room to speak with you and you have to meet him. And then we actually found out I kind of knew who you were already through Twitter because I love Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. You followed me on Twitter. I'm sorry about that. I have to delete all of that stuff now.
Yeah. Quakebook, really long time ago.
Yeah.
I was invited to participate in Quakebook, and I think that's how I remembered your name because you were involved in that project.
Kind of. I was, it was around that time that I became that I really started to understand what Twitter was for. And a lot of the people around that project and the writers around that were people I became very interactive with around that time. And you know what? I was invited to write a chapter and I didn't. But every day I was pumping out 2 or 3 pages of blogs, just basically to keep, all the non-Japanese speakers in Japan who were freaking out and my family overseas was freaking out. I was sitting in front of NHK live on 24 hours and just typing everything into English and blogging it. So I was very active around that time, although I didn't actually participate in that fantastic project. Did you actually contribute to that?
I did. I think someone approached me and they really liked a longer tweet. Yeah. It wasn't 140 characters, it was probably like 300 that I had written. Yeah. And they said, we really like this tweet. Can we put it in the book? And I was like, sure. At the time, I wasn't at Mariko Lockridge. I was at Tokyo Twilighter, which I hesitate to say on the internet because that's a party girl who no longer exists. She is deleted from the internet. I have removed her.
Oh, come on.
Tokyo Twilighter was my previous existence when I used to party and run parties and do all that stuff. Now I'm serious and I'm an adult-ish. Sometimes.
Yeah. So I guess so to start out, I mean, I know that you are a journalist and you do all sorts of cool freelancing projects and stuff like that, but you've also got a really interesting background as well. I mean, just going through your blogs and stuff on your homepage and stuff like that. There's so many angles. I gotta be honest. The only thing I'm struggling with at the moment is which angle. Every angle I can think of to have a conversation with you, even from just as we were sitting up, I can tell is awesome. Is going to be really super interesting for this audience. But let's start off with the basics. Your background. So you were raised in both US and Japan, or was it US was the overseas? What was the?
So my mom is Japanese from Tokyo. I'm a Nakano girl, so Nakano Kushishi.
Nakano.
Yes, I'm a Nakano girl. And my father is from Buffalo, New York. So right there, if you know either of those cities, you know how completely far apart they are.
They're not close.
Yes, I lived with my grandparents in Japan until I was about 7. My parents were very busy working and building things. And then I moved to America and I lived with my family until I was about 15-ish, 16. And then I moved back to Japan, and I went to a regular Japanese high school.
You went straight into a regular Japanese high school?
Yes, I did. And by that point, I didn't remember any Japanese. So I spent the first 2 years of my life basically like a mute. So I have a lot of empathy for small children that are unable to speak or communicate their emotions, because I know what that's like when you just point and you're just like, hungry.
You went through that twice. So you went through that when you were 7 and you went to America, I would guess, or did you speak English at home?
When I was little, I think they had done a little bit better job of, they used to say that like I had a Fisher Price phone, and then I had this phone by like Bandai, and that when the Fisher Price phone rang, I could pick it up and I would be like, hello. And then when the little Bandai phone was to ring, I used to pick it up, be like, moshi moshi. So apparently until that time, my brain was able to clearly create a separation between the languages and cultures, and I knew who to direct what to. But then, being a teenager is awkward enough without throwing cultural confusion into it. So
I'm a complete failure of a parent of a 5-year-old bicultural kid. So, and at the moment, I'm just hit that crisis point that I've realized he's gotten to 5 years old, and I've been speaking Japanese at home, and the whole plan is to send him to regular school, at least for the beginning. But at the same time, the fact that he is behind in English now, I'm actually since he turned 5, or since this year, I've actually started now consciously focusing on trying to use more English and teach him English and stuff like that. But he didn't grow up like a kid with a Fisher Price phone and a Bandai phone, and that's kind of now I'm in recovery mode on that.
Yeah, I totally wish I had gone to a Japanese elementary school. They just look like more fun. They ride like unicycles and pogo sticks. It looks like a circus. And then I also feel like you learn the entire kanji system by the time you're in 6th grade. And Americans are much more forgiving of foreign accents than Japanese are. So I kind of feel like being in a native Japanese language environment until you're older, and then picking up English later, from a personal cultural perspective as a mixed kid, helps you to assimilate better. But every kid is different. My sister has only been in Japan. I have a sister, same mother, same father. She lived in Japan for a year the same time I did. She went back. She doesn't want to ever come back to Japan again. Me, I never left. So every kid is different.
It's funny. There are so many siblings who are like that. And maybe sometimes it's even part of it, just the fact that they're trying to set out their own identity and stuff like that as well, that they go in different directions sometimes.
That's very much a parent's point of view about it.
Well, that's all I got, right? I mean, I am actually half myself. My mother is Australian. I mean, my dad's a New Zealander. But it doesn't really count.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always tell when I'm talking to people about helping mixed kids understand their identity is, when you're dealing with someone who's like Korean or someone who's like African American, they have parents who are also the same thing they are to help them learn about their identity. But mixed kids mixed kids don't usually have mixed parents. So the parents don't have any idea how to help them study their identity. And that's something that, I can't learn from my mom how to be mixed. I can't learn from my father how to be mixed. And as much as this term double is very popular, I don't like it.
Yeah, but, and it made me pause for a minute. So I saw I was just mentioning when we came on, I saw your blog, and the one that I wanted to read first and that I read first was Career Day for Third Culture Kids. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what's Third Culture Kids? And that's of course what it is. But
yes.
But the problem with the idea of third culture as well. Well, okay, so I met, there's the movie Half that came out, and I met the director.
The premiere. Wonderful project. I love Sophia. I think she's brilliant.
Yeah, and I thought it was an awesome movie. But what that really showed and reinforced was, in a way, there is a third culture. There is a third culture of mixed race with Japanese, whatever. But at the same time, there's not a culture. The fact that there's so much diversity in that culture it makes it almost impossible to define, and the range of experiences is so different around that as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, and I'm trying to figure out how to be a parent to a child in that situation, and that's exactly. So far, the most awkward question I've been asked is why I don't have very much hair. But I know in future it's gonna evolve into questions like that, and I have no idea. Like I said, I always relate well to Kikoku Shijo and to Yeah, a lot of half people in terms of I came to Japan 16 years ago and avoided foreigners and I went for the culture thing as well. And I find I really, because of the way that I approached coming here, I related very well to people in that kind of middle situation, be they Japanese people who went to international school or returnee kikoku shijo Japanese or people, you know, Nikkei Americans who came to Japan, you know, to discover their roots or whatever. But, you know, something with this kind of fixed interest in getting a deep understanding, a proper understanding of Japan, but also not being totally Japanese at the same time.
Right.
But I don't know. So, but from your perspective, where would you categorize? I mean, there's such a spectrum of different sort of experiences. I guess this is a really impossible question to ask, but where do you put yourself, do you think, on that spectrum? Do you see yourself as a returnee or as an American living in Japan or a Japanese?
Oh, wow. I feel like this is the question I get asked the most. It's interesting. Since about a year ago, I'm actually living in the US half the year and in Japan half the year. So for the first time in my life, I'm literally a half. Like I literally reside in the United States half the time and in Japan half the time. And having lived now in Japan like I don't know, over a decade, I found going back to America and adjusting back more difficult than having been here. Most probably because I've also lived in Japan for most of my adult life. I had probably identify myself as Japanese first, and then I guess as American. But I try very strongly to identify myself as mixed, just because I think it's important for people to recognize that that is an identity as well, and that you don't have to choose, because that's the question I get asked the most. Which do you like better? Which would you choose? If you only live in one place, it's like, I'm like, are you asking me to choose between my mom and my dad? Because that's what I feel like right now. I love them both equally. It's kind of my feeling about that. But,
and the truth is that you get to a certain point where, you know, I mean, I think even, you know, people could have, you know, aristocracy blood with a family tree marked out perfectly for 2,000 years. You're still going to have identity issues when you're 16. You know, you're still going to there are phases I think that humans go through. Am I a goth or am I a, you know, a club music person, or all these kind of things? We spend so much time and energy trying to define ourselves. Obviously for some people those issues become more complex than others, but you do get to a point, I found from my 30s, that I kind of stopped caring so much about it and just started saying whatever, you know. I mean, I don't know, I think a lot of people naturally spend that time up to 30 trying so hard to establish an identity, and after that people just kind of start to accept. Rather than assert, they just start to you mellow out, I think, naturally a little bit after that as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think one of my the favorite quotes my sister ever wrote on Facebook is like, she's celebrating her birthday and she's in her late 20s right now. She's like, I'm so happy about getting older. I have so much less energy to care about things that really don't matter to me anymore. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, a couple of things. There's some things in the comments here. First of all, I'm getting a lot of taunting at the moment from people because they know I got particularly upset last year about the butter shortage, and with all the news that it started again.
Oh my gosh!
Everyone knows that I
had to cover that several times. It was very traumatic, and it was also very frustrating because I was like, everyone's misunderstanding. The cows are not. I'm just like, it's not, no.
And you know what? And we'll get on to talking about your life as a journalist, but you know what's going to happen? Because I come from an extreme free trade agricultural country. We will give Japan all the butter. Sorry, when I say New Zealand will give Japan all the butter it ever wants. It'll never want to see butter ever again when New Zealand is through sending butter to Japan. But you know, they're going to have the obligatory news story on NHK when the 10,000 tons of butter, you know, ordered by the government on an emergency basis, when it arrives in the country, they're going to get, again, the cookie chef who came on NHK last year is going to look at the butter. He's going to say, I don't like it. I don't like this foreign butter. It's no good. And it's just, yes. So everyone's talking about that. There was also, my Argonauts just mentioned there that the Half movie is going to be available on rental.
Oh, good. Everyone please watch it.
Which is great because I didn't even know that rental shops existed anymore. No, exactly. I guess it's going to be on Netflix or something. I really want to get the DVD anyway, just to have it home, actually.
Yes. That's a great project. Everyone, if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. I went to the press conference when they held the FCCJ, and it was actually an emotional. Were you there? It was an emotional.
I watched it at the Mexican embassy.
Okay, so I saw it when they were presented at the FCCJ, and they were like, mixed kids in the audience who stood up and said thank you and like cried.
Yeah.
And they started to talk about what it meant to them. It was like, I mean, props to Sophia for really just acting like this amazing role model mother figure to all these confused young children who just came up to her and like hugged her like she was, saving them or something. I just was like, wow.
I remember I came home and I told my wife, we have to get this on DVD and keep it for when he's old enough to watch it. And he starts asking questions about this, and this is like an awesome movie. My wife's like, no, he's Japanese. No one thinks he's half. He's fine. He's fine because obviously she's a Japanese mum in Japan. She wants to think he looks like her. We're raising him more or less, at least Japanese first.
Right.
And she's like, no, it's fine. He doesn't have to worry. But obviously, it is the one thing when you're the out of culture person, maybe you've got a heightened sense of awareness about the fact that at some point a kid's going to ask him if he's a Gaijin, or some kids are going to be separating him out even if he doesn't see himself that way. And that's how you deal with that situation. So I really want to get this DVD anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember actually it wasn't that long ago. I remember like a couple of years ago, I remember we were walking outside and I was with my mom, and my mom's Japanese, and I remember asking her like, does it ever bother you that I don't look like you? And it never occurred to me to ask her. I don't know why that day for particular. My mom just looks at me and she goes, a lot of kids don't look like their parents. And like, she wasn't even paying attention to my question. She was just like, a lot of kids don't look like their parents. And
you tweeted that recently, right?
I think I did, because someone had asked me about that again.
As you say that. Okay.
Right. And then I just remember at the time, like, she doesn't even know what I'm talking about. Like, they were just like, and I was like, well, because she's my mom, obviously. And her answer just made so much sense that I think I still tell that story every time I talk to someone about that kind of situation, and because it makes me laugh, because it was just such a good answer. It just made perfect sense.
I know someone who's an awesome mum out there whose username is Krella. I don't know if she's watching this. I hope she does come and watch it later on. So she's got a son. She's an American lady who married a Japanese doctor, and had a son, and the son came up, and he's just graduated medical school, become a doctor, and married, and has his own kid now. So I'm seeing grandmother pictures and so on now. And yeah, there's kind of a circle of us that would exchange, we had like a forum site that we were using. I think I had the same thing. Like she lives in rural Kyoto. So
okay.
I was kind of like, and so all these people, a lot of my friends are in the same situation at the same time. So now we're all having Japanese kids. It's like, well, aren't you concerned about putting the kid into like a countryside, rural kind of Japanese school, about getting bullied or kind of singled out? And she just said, kids are just mean. They'll pick on kids for anything. I mean, if it's not that, it's going to be one of 10 other things, and you can't protect them from everything. So you can't let that dictate what you do as a parent.
Yeah, sometimes those differences are things that make you the most popular kids. My sister has hazel eyes, almost greenish, and so when she came to Japan, the girls are just like, they literally wanted her eyes. Like, she was a little creeped out by it, and she was like 3 steps back, people, 3 steps back. But it was, it's funny. It's like you don't know how that dynamic will work out. Yeah,
it is different. The external experience is different, and the internal experience, the way that people react, is totally different. So yeah, you never know. But one thing as well, you do so many kind of crazy things all over the place.
Yeah.
And you move back and forth as well. As an army brat, that really resonates. I moved around all the time as a kid, and there's a certain, I don't know, we just have, when I meet other army brats, I relate to them.
I'm not an army brat.
I know, but you moved a lot, and the kind of life that you're having now, it resonates. I click very well with other army brats who all kind of do what you do. Actually, we all kind of end up kind of. Because you don't feel, I think when you grow up in the same place and with the same friends and everything, this whole kind of thing, those people end up naturally seeking stability through their lives, even if they're not necessily, I think it's actually kind of liberating to not be attached to feeling obligated to live in a certain town and doing a certain job. And,
yeah, that scares me. Like,
yeah, I'm the same.
It's like totally frightens me. I remember like I had an ex-boyfriend propose to me, and then he was like talking about his dreams, and I was like looking at like, no. I really felt like the walls closing in, and I was like, "You do not. No, this is a beautiful ring, but I'm the wrong one." I'm like, no. I was like trying to be like, no, I to take it out. No.
For me, it's not that. For me personally, it's not so much I'm afraid. It's just that I had so many great experiences as a kid moving around that I'm never anchored to anything that I need to be in anything. If something cool is over, if there's a cool job opportunity or there's a cool opportunity to do something, I'm not inhibited from doing those things. Like right. I see some people are, and that's just great. I mean, for me, I think that's the only way to live is to not think of all the reasons you can't do stuff all the time, which so many people are wrapped up in. And this is and when I look at your blog and your background, you are clearly not inhibited from doing things that you like.
Yeah, I think one thing is like I don't think design. It sounds conceited, but I feel like, why can't I do it? Like literally, I'm just like, I can do that, and then I'm like, then I'll try it, and I'll be like, no, I can't really do it.
Well, that's it. I was just gonna say that's the difference between us. I mean, I do lots of things, but kind of crap. Whereas you actually, when you want to blog, you write for magazines. When you want to do, like occasionally. I actually did like a social aware kind of quasi documentary. My last video blog, I actually happened to be dropping clothes off at the Refugee Association up the road, and I actually did an interview with them. I thought, wow, it's like I'm being a journalist, but everything I do is kind of in a crappy, half-assed kind of amateur bloggy way. But you do all the same things and have the same impulses. But you work for Reuters as a video journalist, and you actually go and make documentaries about breakdancers in India, and you go to Kosovo and. I'm very impressed at how you take things to a level that I never quite seem to.
Yeah, so sometimes I feel like it's also like my biggest flaw. Like I feel like
how's it a flaw?
Work at 20% because it can be very overwhelming for others who are like aren't you worried about money or this? I was like, yeah, it'll work out. Like they're like, you're gonna go where? Kosovo for what? I'm just like, why not? I called the embassy. They said it's safe. Like, I've taken my precautions. I've had my shots. I'm good.
But I must admit, this is another thing where I feel the army brat thing helped. I don't know. For me, I'm not afraid of earthquakes, provided I don't actually get crushed by the buildings I'm living in.
Right.
Outside of that, the idea of losing everything and starting again, or I still take enormous pride that back in 1999, when I came to live on the stint. I've been in Japan a few times before that. I came with a backpack. I was expecting to pay to get, a house moving thing over, which my company stiffed me on in the end. So in the end, I had a 35-liter backpack, and that's what I came to Japan with. Everything I've got, the Hopi, the giraffe poster, and the panda with the cowboy hat and everything. I accumulated after coming to Japan based on everything I did when I came here. But this is the thing. I mean, I've done it so many times as a kid, moving around and. Yeah, it's actually, I think, healthy to kind of at least be prepared, so to not be attached to things and not be attached to, to be able to do stuff like that. So getting into that. So you went to university in Japan, right?
Yeah, I'm a Sophia student, Jochi Daigaku. But it took me 8 years to graduate. So I say that. Because I dropped out twice. I found out really early on that I was told I'm extremely intelligent and I do very well on standardized testing, but I have the inability to sit still in the classroom. And unfortunately, a lot of school is about attendance. So
wait a minute. But you went to Japanese university. I mean, I know Jochi's kind of international.
So it's international. So some of my classes, I think like I took 60% of my classes in English, and then I took 40% in Japanese just because I didn't have to. I was just being contrary. I think to be contrary. Like I was just so, I don't want to say bored because all the content was quite stimulating. I have obviously based on my lifestyle, I have a difficult time sitting still. And a classroom is no different. And the idea of like being in a classroom for 90 minutes straight, twice a week, 4 months straight, like even now thinking about it, it makes me like jittery. Like I'm just like, ugh. So I dropped out 2 or 3 times. Yeah. But eventually I got my degree, so I do have my degree. So
your degree was journalism related. What did you study?
All the classes I could fit together to get my degree, basically. I think at the end they gave me a social studies major. I think is what they gave me, like a liberal arts something. Like I really don't know. I didn't go to my graduation ceremony. I don't even have a diploma, but I do know I graduated. I have checked the records.
You know,
or my father did, anyways. My father checked the records. He said, "Did you really graduate?" I'm like, "Yes."
I didn't go to my own graduation ceremony, and I spent a couple of years being nervous as to whether I'd actually graduated or not as well.
Yeah, I didn't go to my high school graduation ceremony either. So there was speculation that I had not made it, and I was like, "No, I made it. I made it." I just thought going to the beach was a better use of my time. So,
which I think is the right answer, but yes, yeah, no, you know. I picked up a job in Japan, and I was like, well, do I postpone for 3 months to attend my graduation and take the bar exam in New Zealand, or do I just, yeah, screw it, I'm going to go and do IT, why not? Just drop it, you know, drop it, let's take a worry about it later.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But that's awesome. That's what, okay, I'm instantly liking about you, that you think like that, because that's very aligned. But so, okay, so you took 8 years to get your degree, and you have trouble sitting still and so on. So what was the segue from that into, you started out in journalism, right?
No, I didn't. I actually started out working in
party girl.
Yeah, as a party, like literally as a party girl. I ran VIP services in several clubs. I never worked in a hostess club. Yeah. Oh, I take that back. I worked in a hostess club for 6 months, but as a piano player, I swear to God, that's not a euphemism for anything. That's I actually played the piano. For 3 hours a day.
Yeah, I subscribe to Playboy, but honestly, I just read the articles. I'm not.
No, I literally, like, I sat and played a piano in this hostess bar in Akasaka for about 8 months when I was like 19 years old, and that's literally all I did. Every once in a while, some drunk Japanese man would come and sit next to me and request that I play like a whole new world so that he could duet with me. And so sometimes I would be singing a whole new world. Obviously, I was Jasmine and he was Aladdin. Yeah, so I did. That was the only experience. But besides that, I worked in like a lot of clubs. I worked as like I took care of VIP services. I did after parties for celebrities with a promotion company at the time. I worked as a barista. I once worked for a moving company. I just did whatever like jobs came along, and people were like, "Oh, you should try this," or "Hey, I'm starting a business," or "I'm about to open a restaurant," or "I need some help this weekend moving something." And if it paid, I would do it. Basically, I like the idea of making money, I guess.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So
very far from journalism. Journalism is not about making money.
Well, that's right. But so when you say you're involved in setting up parties and so on for celebrities and stuff like, are you talking about Japanese or foreign who are coming to Japan?
Mostly foreign coming to Japan. The main club I worked at, they had a lot of after parties that were mostly hip hop or pop stars who mostly performed at like Billboard or something's based on existing. Thanks, shout out to 311. But yeah, so that's what I did. And then from there, you meet different interesting characters, and sometimes people would ask me to translate stuff for them. I started to become really interested in social media. Some of these clubs were just starting, or artists were starting to like launch their social media. So they would like, sometimes I get like the short-term projects where I would help like set up their social media thing and set up like the tweets and Facebook pages and whatnot. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. And then sometimes I'd start to meet like managers for Japanese artists, like we want to make an English fan page, and so I found myself suddenly doing that. So it was like all these little side hustles that started all kind of fit together. And then I also realized I didn't like clubs, I don't like drinking, and I don't like smoke. So I was like,
smoke was painful, and that's gotten better, I hear, except now I'm just too old to go out. I mean, again, there's something that happened to me around 30 that it just got to the point where it gets like 2 o'clock in the morning. And all I'm thinking is just screw this, I just want to go home.
You're just like Netflix on my snacks, and YouTube, I guess. It's amazing. You're just like, Netflix snacks and some fluffy socks sounds so good on a Saturday night.
From 22 to 30, I did that every Friday, Saturday. No matter how much I was dying from overwork, I would make sure I was at some big event, and I would always be going out all night. And I live so far away that I had no choice but to stay out all night if I did it. I kept it going for a long time, but yes, at some point I just suddenly realized, just screw this.
I think I also saw a lot of people around me where I was just like, oh, is this where I want to head? Is this the future? And then I got some really cool, because I had such good access to some of these celebrities and we were chatting. And then that's how I actually got into working as an entertainment writer. And then first like a magazine in the United States, The Source. I did a big interview for them with someone about this artist's experience in Japan, as it was such a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then from there, someone else asked me, and someone else asked me, and then I was never a writer per se, but that access and that, you know, how comfortable these artists were in Japan, and things they would talk with me about, which were the same reporters in America were never able to get. So my article content was interesting, and I had really good editors. And then from there, I think Sean McKenna, the Japan Times, he found me, and he recruited me to write a few articles. And then, it's kind of weird. I half thank March 11th, and I half, you know, as much as you can think of disaster. It changed Japan in a lot of ways. The biggest way I think it changed Japan for me that I noticed is people just started taking chances on things and people and experiences they never did before, because they're like, nothing we planned for works. And that's how I ended up in Reuters, to be really honest, is someone found my profile on LinkedIn. They had a very trying year. March 11th had happened. A cameraman from Reuters was killed in Thailand. And I think the people there were just like, let's just try someone who we normally wouldn't hire, but she's got great energy. If it doesn't work out, we'll just hire someone else, but let's just try something completely different. And then that's how I ended up in Reuters, because I think the timing of it was basically, they felt, I think emotionally it was kind of like, we can't trust what we thought worked in the past. And also after March 11th, a lot of people like wanted to change their lives. You know, foreign journalists left Japan. Some people women who were working full-time as career people, suddenly want to get married. Like, it just, a lot of things changed that I think made a lot of people reassess how they were making their decision-making process. And so I think I benefited from that at the right time, the right place kind of thing. Otherwise, I never would have ended up in Reuters. People still look at me like, where? And now people that know me and I've been doing it for 4 years are like, oh, it's like they can't imagine me doing anything else. But 4 years ago, they were like, people are like, Mariko can do it. Why can't I? I went to grad school and I did this and that. And I'm just like, oh,
that's an interesting theme as well, because there are some cases which I will not talk about in detail, but I know there is a bit of a tension in Japan between the trained journalists and the people who are very good journalists, but don't necessarily come from the journalism professional school backgrounds.
Oh yeah, I meet them all the time, and some of these people, they look like, and then I'll meet like very trained journalists who are like, you know, Reuters is basically the highest place on the totem pole in their minds, which I don't deny. I think it's a very respectable and established place, and they're just like, how did you get in? Like, what school did you go to? Where's your grad school? Where did you get your master's? What J school did you go to? And I'm just like, none of the above. But to be honest, like two of the most brilliant coworkers I've ever had in my job at Reuters, neither of them they're just very, very, very good at their job, especially in a region like Asia, which is requires a very unique skill set that you cannot use learning in a university setting.
Well, that's what I was about to say. The thing is that, no question, training's not worthless. You know, it can benefit in a lot of ways. But there are so many very, very well-trained journalists from very, very reputable and very, very good news organizations that I respect a lot, who just aren't good at reporting on on this country and this region very well, right? I mean,
no, not at all. I mean,
it's not always the journalist's fault either. I think there's a lot of confirmation bias that goes on in the editorial decisions that happens with a lot of news reporting. They don't want people to go and collect the stories sometimes that they get back. They want stories that go and confirm the kind of assumptions that people have. Right. And you see, and for me, I call myself a news addict. I'm a digester of news. Right. The thing on that was, to moving house every year. I'm in my 38th house at the moment. I'm about to go to my 39th house. Maybe the one thing, and the thing was, I was even changing countries all the time. So even the channels and the TV shows would change, but some of the TV shows would be the same as I moved around. So I think part of the thing was I just grew up a complete TV addict. And I think it was just partly that whenever I go into a new empty house, the very first thing I set up and plug in is the TV. Because once the TV is turned on, it feels at home, even if there's nothing else in the house. But you kind of feel like, so whenever my parents wanted to ground me as a kid, like if I did something really bad and they really wanted to punish me or whatever, the most effective ban was banning me from television. But I was also a good negotiator as a kid, and so I always carved out an exception for educational programs and news. So, which my parents were very good. They encouraged me to be reasonable like that. So I got rewarded for that. But it meant that I remained addicted to news. I never broke my childhood addiction to news from as a kid. What the 311 did for me was, I think it more than anything else in my life really broke the illusion of all news being, objective.
Mm-hmm.
It was so frustrating to see the way that was being reported. And when there was a group of people around, and I was in the periphery of the Quakebook project, where a lot of people were getting, and I think it was through all the drama, and people became tribal. There was the Panic Tribe, there was the Flee Tribe, there was the Fly Jeans, Stay Away Tribe, and there were people who kind of formed these things. But I was very interested in trying to find people who were accumulating objective, clean sources of information that that weren't just designed to generate hysteria, which was the popular, the selling news at that time.
Right.
But the thing for me as well was about the whole disaster was as well. So it was like the top story every day for like 2 months, or for a long time for something like BBC and CNN. But obviously there was fatigue about the reporting. There's only so many times you can say that everybody on the west coast of America is going to die. And so they had to segue this news story at some point. And I remember I was just watching the BBC, which I love. I love The Economist. I love BBC. And I remember one day they ran this story that, everything wasn't so bad after all. And then the next day, the Libyan revolution started. And I remember how it switched to the Libyan thing. And everything I'm watching, because so much credibility to me had been lost from all of these news organizations, and watching how they were trying to make the news story fit to a storyline. You could see, even in a forced way. And when it flipped to the Libyan revolution, a lot of these colored revolutions in the Middle East, and all of a sudden I'm looking at everything with a completely different set of eyes to what I saw before. Right. And it's like, oh my God, this is just being news told to a preconceived narrative. Yeah. And this is spontaneous. There's no Western involvement whatsoever. There are no jihadis anywhere in the Middle East who are going to take advantage of this. This is pure democracy. And it's like the State Department was writing the briefs for it. And that's where, my perception of news changed a lot. And what I found, I went through a real, like, oh my God, news is all depressing and fake and terrible at that time. And of course, news from 9/11, everything was getting wound back, right? I mean, it's the timing that you got that job when news was really, and it still is, under a lot of pressure on downsizing and stuff like that. But what I love at the moment, and what really shook me up, by the way, I went to law school in New Zealand, but I had a secret. I had parental expectations and academics, expectations. I'm supposed to go to law school. My secret wish was somehow that I would fail the law school exam so I could go to journalism school. And my secret wish was as a politics student, I wanted to write for The Economist. That was my dream at that time. And, somehow I actually did the thing I was supposed to do. Although after my law degree, I totally did nothing related to law for like 10 years after that. I escaped and I did IT and consulting and other stuff. But yeah, it was for me, what I always thought journalism, what I loved about what The Economist did was, I love how they would have some guy that they would just send to Ecuador, or they would send to Turkmenistan, and they just leave him there for a month, and then he'd have to figure out a really interesting story about it and give a really in-depth, nuanced description of what's going on there, told from multiple sides. Mm-hmm. And there's no other news, that really that's one of the best news sources that does that, right? And I was like, I want to be that guy who goes to, Kazakhstan and writes, and figures it out and explains what's interesting about it to other people. And unfortunately, that's really that really went in decline, where first news aggregated, and then it kind of thinned out. But now you have this new kind of lean online-based news. You have the Vice News, and these people who are going with like just two guys, a camera guy and a front guy, and they're walking around, and where news is, I don't know, it became punditry for so long. Everything kind of got reduced from going out and getting stories to talking about stories. Mm-hmm. But now there's kind of a new wave that I can see, which is what 20 years ago I wanted news to be, and it kind of disappeared for a while. But now it's coming back. This whole idea of just young, reckless, enthusiastic people just going to countries with Ebola, or going to countries where areas where ISIS is in control, and convincing people for no pay whatsoever to go and do interviews and talk and actually show the perspectives of those people. I know. What's your feeling? I feel like, in a way, real journalism's kind of coming back through this kind of lean through the new internet model. I don't know. What's your perspective on that?
I have such mixed feelings on it, because it's like one side of me feels that it's great that there are these opportunities for people at a younger age to be sent out in the field and see for themselves, and with these fresh eyes that haven't been influenced by tons of millions of other experiences, and they haven't been on a desk, so they're not super influenced by how the company makes editorial decisions, which is fascinating. But at the same time, I look at that, I'm very much like, I have a younger sister, and like I'm always like I'm such like the older sister, like the one who wants to like look out for everyone kind of personality. But the other part of me is just like, God forbid anything happens to these young kids, how is their insurance covered? Like, I mean, like, there's literally in my mind is like, are they part of a union? Like, do they have a will? Like, is the company going to pay for their bodies to come back? If they have kids, who's going to take, like, it's like, that's the part of me that's very much the, I don't know, I guess the business, almost like a business side of me, where I'm thinking about like all of the, well, what if they lose just their legs and then they can't work? Like, it's kind of like, I'm always thinking about all the, the
scenarios,
the longer term thing, and how, as a freelancer, or when that's your job, to what capacity is it worth to put yourself in dangerous situations for a great story? But is your company going to be responsible for what happens if you're kidnapped? Are they going to make sure that they extract you, kind of thing? And that's the thing that worries me about that type of journalism, because as much as it's heroic in a way, it also makes me wonder, it makes me concerned if people watching understand the actual real dangers. If it's, in a way, making the dangers almost seem too cinematic, and then people are going to get to the point where it doesn't affect them anymore. Like the Vice piece, where they literally had like beheadings and heads on the, and there was no
I know the one that you're talking about as well.
There was no warning that it was a graphic image, and like Reuters, we have to check a box. Like we have to actually, Reuters, I work for Agence France as well. I work for other organizations, and you have to check a box when it's graphic or there's nudity. And sometimes it seems ridiculous, and sometimes it's like, no, there's a reason. There's a reason. Like, we want our kids to have some innocence until a certain age. We still want kids to believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. I don't really need them to see, like, that such horrible things happen at the age of 5. Like, they can see that by looking around without having to go on the internet. So that's the thing that worries me about, like, it's exciting, but then the very rational part of me that's like, they're attached to someone loves them. Like, are they taken care of? Is someone going to make sure that they're okay if something happens to them? Because large companies don't really care. Like, that's the thing, is if you're not usable anymore, large companies don't really care about what happens to you after you're not.
Yeah, I hear. And, I mean, Goto, you take Goto, for example, the freelancers who ended up being in Syria in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they were freelancers and they didn't have a big company there backing them up, whatever. No, that's right. That's exactly the scenario that actually happened, and maybe that provided a reminder to people as well. But at the same time, there is a gene which I think men and women have, but certainly a lot of young, stupid guys definitely have.
Definitely.
They just want to go. I mean, if they weren't going there as a journalist, they would be going there as a mercenary, or they'd be going there in some other way. Sometimes I think there's something that draws on, right? It's hard to explain what it is, right? But there is something in the human condition that we want to go to exciting, dangerous places sometimes.
I 100% understand that feeling. So as much as I like warn and whatnot, like when Ebola happened, I was like fighting people, like being like, who will send me to West Africa? I speak French. I'm ready to go. Or, like I went to India on a whim, and I was in Dharavi, which is like the biggest slum of Asia. I went to Kosovo on a whim. Neither of those are particularly great countries for women at the moment. But I think also the teams that I've had, which are mostly male teams of young guys, there's a very strong competitive spirit. But I've been really lucky that the young men, from 25 to 38, are also feminists. a lot of young male journalists I meet are actually also like feminists in a lot of ways. They're just like totally. They'll be like, Monica, you can do it. Like you can do it, and I'll be like, really? Or maybe just I've just been blessed to work with really great teams where the guys are like, yeah, you can do it. Why not? They're like, yeah, Monica's fine. Or when I remember when I said I was going to India and I had this idea, like they were like, oh yeah, and then like my colleagues actually lent me pieces of equipment so my kit was complete. And then now looking back on it, I was like, yeah, I wasn't prepared for that situation at all. Like I had no idea what I was walking into, but I went in with this total cowboy attitude that like I'm totally confident and able to do this. Everyone said I'm ready. That it's the only reason I was probably successful. I didn't have the.
You know what? That's the best attitude. I think I'm a total believer, and sometimes you just have to shut down all rational sense and be a cowboy and go in, because the best way to learn anything is to just completely screw it up in the worst way possible, and that is the best way to get to that point. So, I mean, sometimes, if you're being too cautious and boring, you don't actually learn the lessons that you can learn much better sometimes by getting in too deep and suddenly realizing, oh crap. I mean, obviously.
Right.
Without wanting to put yourself at physical danger or whatever.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest differences sometimes between men and women. And it's sometimes like when I do my job, I have to be like, okay, I'm a girl, but let's get that inner cowboy out and the Amazon and kind of thing. And let's be the Amazonian woman that I am inside and just go and do it and not worry about all the consequences that a lot of guys never seem to be concerned about. But all my female friends,
we have parts of our brain missing.
Like when I told my guy friends, oh, I'm gonna go do this, they're like, oh, that sounds awesome. I told my girlfriends, well, what are you gonna pack? Aren't you concerned? It was just very interesting. It was just literally spread down the gender divide. Yeah, completely opposite.
And there's so many cool topics actually, and I see them all going off at the moment. But there is one which I definitely noticed through your blogging stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So one thing I guess, and it's a great thing about being able to be creative. And in the freelance context where you can do lots of different stuff, there is there are themes of social issues and stuff that you're interested in. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I mean, and you were talking before as well about, I don't know if you'd say feminism per se, but certainly, things like women's rights and women's issues. And so it's something that sort of comes up. I don't know. You said that you were lecturing at Temple today, for example, about the history issues.
I wasn't really lecturing. I was just giving a short little talk in Professor Kingston's class. Actually, it's pretty famous around Japan on Japan topics. I think he has like 5 books published. Just completely by chance, I went to middle school with his niece in Buffalo, of all places, which is mind blowing. Yeah, small world, very small world. I call myself a feminist just for the ease of communication is at its term, but I'm just really big on building self-esteem. I just think that not enough people have it. I don't think we do enough to make sure young people have it. And I especially think that, young women don't get a lot of opportunities to have the right kind of self-esteem building exercises from a young age. And that men don't get to learn the self-esteem exercises about how to support women around them to have self-esteem as well. And I just feel like that's something that when I work on projects or when I mentor or even when I'm asked to work on like commercial projects or I send pitches, these are things that are kind of part of my value system. I want to bring on younger females into my project. I want to create positive images of women in projects I do. I want to highlight outstanding women that are doing really positive, making a positive impact in the world. Yeah. Even when I do interviews, like I interviewed Charlize Theron at the Mad Max premiere in Japan, and I totally snuck into the conversation about how she fought for the huntsman to, during the Sony leak, she found out that she was being paid less than her co-star, the male co-star, and then she basically went back to, and she went back to Sony and was like, I'm not happy about this. And then she was like, equal pay. And she was really the star of that film too. Like he's really not, which is the interesting part. And I actually asked her about that on the red carpet. I was like, you're a powerful female. And I was just like, let me just sneak this into the conversation. It has nothing to do with the movie. Really, it kind of does because you're equal to Tom Hardy in the film. She's a powerful lead female role.
What would your character have done?
So I asked her that question. So I sneak don't know, sneak, but I try to keep the topic relevant in my own way whenever possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And she was really cool about her answer. I was like impressed. I was like, rah, girl power, great.
It's funny as well though, because that's something as well. Where I find commonality between New Zealand culture and Japanese culture is maybe, I don't know. Well, New Zealand is just filled with American TV. I was raised watching Different Strokes and like American TV and those kind of values. But at the same time, New Zealand and Japan are very culturally similar on this. We have what's called tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand, and Japan has the thing as well about just derukugi is the same as a tall poppy in New Zealand. The whole idea that not just women or whatever, just as a society, even in a good way, don't draw attention to yourself because people are just going to slam on you. Something actually which I like about Australians and Americans is that those are cultures which celebrate people who are different to some extent, or people who are successful or whatever. But it's really hard to do in Japan. The culture in Japan is kind of intuitively, celebrities deliberately, dress down, they buy normal cars, they kind of try to play down that they're. So to me, when I hear that as well, I understand the importance of it, and especially it comes out, as you say, in pay is the statistically provable way of where it comes out, the most. But I find there's a fascinating cultural thing around that as well. I don't know. I mean, do you have trouble convincing Japanese women that they need to have a bit more self-belief?
What is it? Lean in, right? Isn't that the very popular phrase? By,
lean in.
Miss, gosh, her name is, I'm blanking on her, but I sometimes do. It's interesting. Like, I don't really work for Reuters in Japan anymore. I work for them mostly in LA these days. But I was working for Reuters in Japan. I had a lot of female interns. Yeah. And it was interesting that, my entire team was male except for myself. And it was interesting too because I was the only contractor on the team. Everyone else was full time, which I'm not even going to that. I'm pretty sure if I was a male, that wouldn't have happened. But my female interns, it was interesting how sometimes they would go out and, be with the boys and work really hard, and they'd come back and be like, I wasn't comfortable. Or like they'd be like, oh, or they'd like, they say, I really want to do this, but I think that I should maybe just get a regular job because that's what's safe. And I'm like, do you really want to go and try to make a documentary in Thailand? Then go for it. And they're like, well, where would I get the money? And I was like, those are the problems you have to solve. I was like, so what you want to do, and then figure out how to do it. And they're just like, oh, and then they'd end up starting a job, and I would see them like a year or two later and be like, yeah, I'm thinking get married. And then, which is nothing's wrong with all of that if that's the path that you want to go. But it's frustrating to have them start the conversation about having some dream and then feeling that without even exploring what it would take to pursue it, that they've already given up on it. Whereas some of the boys, I'm not saying that any of the Japanese boys as interns are any better, but at least they start to explore it. And then they're just like, yeah, I'm broke, I'm eating ramen, so I'm gonna go get that job at my dad's company kind of thing. Yeah.
So. But the thing is, that happens more often with more people than it doesn't, right? I mean,
in general, I wouldn't say it's a male-female thing at all.
No,
at all. It's just, I think in general, it's just something that just happens. It's really hard to have the guts to just start doing what you want to do. I think one of the things I tell people the most is you have to find, if that's what you want to do, you need to find other people who also are doing it or want to do it and stick with them, because otherwise you're going to have really bad days, really bad days where things aren't working out and a lot of other options seem much more simple. And when you go to your friends, if, that's the lifestyle they have, they'll be encouraging you to go, oh, why don't you just become an English teacher? The pay is easier. Oh, why don't you just go work for Mizuho Bank or something? They're hiring you, something like that. But if your other friends are entrepreneurs or DJs or journalists or videographers, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember I was going through that time, this, and had to get through it, or no, you've been doing so well, and or why don't you try this, or or oh, I can lend you some X piece of equipment that you need right now because your computer broke down. So
and this is where I know that you do have some videos and some documentaries that you've been involved in making that are all on Vimeo, which I know is the classy place to put videos. But what YouTube even now is evolving in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, in fact, very much since the time that Dave became involved actually as well, although building up to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still is changing at an exponential pace at the moment. Now we really have a situation where maybe 2 years ago they were like, you could probably count in Japan, maybe one hand, maybe two hands, but the number of people who are living off YouTube. But now, I know in the community that we have in Japan, personally, I know like at least a dozen people who are working on living off creativity on all sorts of different angles. And I know people who come in and out of the YouTube thing as a leverage for their other things like writing and so on.
Right.
And I know some great authors. I mean, I've loved getting to know Bio McNeil a bit. I love his books. And there's Texan in Tokyo, who is currently moved out to Saitama, trying to live a bit more affordably and make a go of living freelance. And it is cool for me. I try to do kind of both. I try to be this respectable salaryman during the day, and at the same time, though, I think it's good for the soul to be around people who are living and seriously doing things that they love. You know what I mean? I mean, because there's so many people, there's so much pressure in life to sacrifice those things and settle down, and it's kind of cool. I find it very cool to be around people, and it's great how YouTube, and in so many ways, I think, just I can see it so visibly now. There's so many ways that it used to be that YouTube was it was just a hobby thing,
right?
And it started out literally as like radio CV operators with webcams and Skype cams and stuff like that. And it's turned into something that from all sorts of different perspectives has become an outlet, like a real medium now for creative people. But there's so many people through blogging and so on, and it's starting to draw in people which wouldn't have come to the format before. I've got a friend from high school who is actually a documentary maker for Discovery Channel and National Geo, who... Yeah, he's always telling me about. He was always pitching. In fact, you know what? I might be able to take credit for this. I met him 2 years ago in Singapore, and he was telling me about how part of his job is creating concepts and pitching them to networks, and they have to get sponsors for it to get it picked up. You have to have a 20-person crew and the budget and fly to all these places and do it. And he gets to. I mean, it's some people's dream job, right? Being a documentary maker for Discovery Channel, traveling all around the world and planning and making documentaries. But he says, some of his favorite ideas and concepts and stuff that he's always wanted to do that weren't able to get a sponsor, or they got to the third stage of vetting and got killed at the last moment, and that you're at the mercy of kind of, advertisers, especially now you've got to have product placement or something kind of set up with that to make it work. And he actually started a project, which a lot of people watching will know, called What Really Matters, which he set up a YouTube channel named Him the Gaijin, and he got a cameraman, just as two people when he came to Japan and back in Singapore. He just shot basically this thing which he had pitched and always tried to get sold and couldn't get done. He just kind of thought, well, screw it, I'm going to try doing it myself. And for me, I told him when I was meeting with him, you're doing all this stuff and you're complaining about frustration at the machine of production. You should just go on YouTube and do what I do, except you're actually a professional. You can do it better than me. You should go and you'd clean up because you actually know what you're doing. And it's what he did. He released a season of 5 episodes, which were very professionally done and edited, which of course no one here, we're all amateurs trying to work towards being, professionals, whereas he's a professional getting into the YouTube thing. And he was so pumped and excited and hyper about it when he was starting to realize that people are telling him how great the video is. You can actually see the analytics, which he was saying, the professional, the traditional media, it's all kind of blind. The creation process, succeed or fail, it's paid for before it's done. But you don't actually really know how many people really watch it. You don't actually know whether they like it or what they like about it. You don't really know who's watching. You try to guess what the demographics will be and attach advertisers and stuff like that. But with YouTube, it's all there, and the fact that you can do it one-on-one, and it kind of changes the whole way that you make and produce. I'm really having a lot of fun at the moment with these 360 cameras that have started to come out that you can shoot full VR. And he was telling me, we were talking about that. They've got GoPro rigs which can do super high, resolution stuff, which you have to still pay $2,000 for. But some, professional media companies are using those. But I've got a kind of a cheap toy camera version that Mariko has, which I'll put a few videos up, but everyone's like blowing everyone's minds at the moment because we're going to get these Oculus headsets and everything soon. And this is just it changes the whole experience of watching video, because if you want to do a location or something like that, you know, you can actually be watching the person talking or looking around and taking in the atmosphere around you at the same time of the place. And as soon as you watch it, you instantly get, oh, this is not a gimmick. You know, this is going to be where things go. But but the concept won't work if you've got a 40-person crew behind the camera. You know, it can only work if you've just got one person there, basically.
Yeah.
But you also get all that flexibility from being able to, the way that production is being made so easy to do. You know, one person can go and edit it. You know, have Adobe Premiere, a camera where, you know, anyone can get a consumer grade, a consumer level. You can get a professional grade camera. It's changing the whole way that you can go about digital creation. Mm-hmm. And now the gap between professional creators, talented creators, and average creators is getting kind of closer, and it's opening up so many opportunities. It's what's so cool at the moment. But I see you are doing the documentary stuff. You do have the 5D with the big Rode mic and everything.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually have never done a video. I've never done a video project without selling it first.
Well, that's what my friend was complaining about. So that's the traditional way.
Yeah, so I've actually never done a project without selling it first. But I did have a situation where I had sold a project, and then afterwards, when I was in the final editing phase, actually my media project, I got feedback from the buyer about how they wanted the final product to look, which ethically I didn't agree with. They just were looking for something that was a little bit more dramatized, and I didn't feel like I matched. So I ended up pulling my project from them and losing all my money, which was extremely painful. But at the same time, I felt like I had made I'm still figuring it out. But at the time, I'm just like, it was a really painful decision to make. And I was like,
so cool though. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just
everyone says that, but I'm like, yeah, it's cool until you start looking at how much money I put into it and energy, and it's still sitting in the can done. And so I only have a 2-minute trailer on Vimeo up because I don't want to put it up and then later feel like maybe I can find someone else to sell it to and have on the internet. Like, so I'm still like, even like a year later after I pulled the contract. I found the clause in it where I could get out of it, and didn't tell them that was the reason I was pulling out. I gave them a different reason. But yeah, because I didn't want to offend them more than they had offended me, and I didn't think they would understand anyways. So I just kind of try to make it a peaceful parting of ways. Plus, they're a very large organization. I wasn't trying to have any bad blood because I never know what's going to happen down the line.
That's right, yeah.
But yeah, it was very painful. To this day, I'm still just like, I'm still like, my bank account has not recovered from that experience. But I look at it as, you know what? I could have invested in my own company. That's what I did in a lot of ways. So that project still is.
Oh man! Okay,
I'm
so
still figuring out what to do with it.
There's two things that resonate with me from that story.
Mm-hmm.
One, of all the books by My Japanese Husband Thinks I'm Crazy by Dexter in Tokyo, Joyce Fox, she wrote these fantastic blogs. I mean, like, I was reading them and kind of going, whoa, like moments of clarity type, this person's a genius type blogs. She did a fantastic blog on writing about her approach to content. And she talks about good enough, and she talks about good enough from two angles.
Okay.
The first angle, which people who do what I do know very well, is the idea that you know, you can spend 95% of the time versus effort versus outcome kind of thing, about how much time can you spend on something to get it good enough, but then you spend an extra 20 hours on post-production to get it just that little bit more polished. But you know, how much extra polish, you know, is it really worth it? Especially if it's on your own time, right? So what level is good enough at the same time? Sometimes you just, you know, you have to keep it sane and cut it even and be satisfied that it's good enough to go. But at the other side as well, there's this concept of she wrote, you know, she wanted to put together a book on a certain subject, and she did a bunch of interviews and spent months on it and wrote it. But she realized, you know, when it got to a certain point, it wasn't good enough to publish. And it's this thing as well, you know, good enough being, you don't have to overdo it, but at the same time you would have standards about where to get it. That's one thing that what you just said resonates with, and I think she's a genius. Actually, I really do. I mean, and she wrote it so well, just how she put it. But the other thing is my friend Ace. His name's Alistair, but it's just the high school nickname. I can't help but call him Ace. He was the video, he was the documentary maker that I was just talking about. And again, this whole thing about pitching. And what is wonderful about not just YouTube, by the way, I mean, this is happening everywhere at the moment, but the idea that it's the shift, and I think this is really happening. Google is still trying to figure out how to really make it happen, but the idea that we are not the dancing monkeys anymore. We make the content. The people who like the content and recognize the content will come, and the advertisers follow the good content. So we're not being forced to make. I mean, the whole concept of media for the last half century has been based on making stuff that people with money up front want to put out first and make popular. And the idea of top down, of shaping what people should hear and what people should like. But there is a real shift going on, that if you can make something, the resources are available now that you can, on your own dime, on your own cost, make something. And if it's good, and if it's something that people want to see, or if it resonates with people, Google's trying very hard, and others are trying to create an economy that those sponsors will attach to it, and you'll get reimbursed for it later if you've got the faith and the effort to go ahead with the projects. But it allows people to approach creative projects fundamentally differently. And this whole kind of thing about what you talk about, people who feel like they have to compromise, and for me as well. I mean, I love reality TV. I love reality TV. I admit it's brain pollution in some ways, but America's Asia's Next Top Model. I've got friends who did Amazing Race. In fact, I've got a friend who got second place in Amazing Race Asia and stuff like that.
Amazing Race has won so many Emmys. I mean, it's great. It's a great television program. It's
brilliant. But it gets a little bit painful when you see the non-American, when you see the local versions and how desperate they are, obviously, to get funded. They have to run 10 times around an inflatable Pepsi bottle or something. They really stretch it a little bit sometimes, and you watch it and you just go, this is just so sad, because this is such an awesome show. Why do they have to run around a Pepsi bottle? Why do they have to, make this segment? I don't know. I mean, at the moment, everything is a bit compromised like that, but I don't know. I'm very optimistic, and I think that the real dramatic change that's really started to take momentum in the last 2 years is that the power is coming, and I'm convinced it will come to the long tail. It'll come to the creators, where it already is shifting, right? The media's given up on the idea of uncopyable DVDs and and unrippable CDs and stuff like that. But they were fighting for so long to keep a model that imposed what people could see and what got distributed.
Right.
And now they're finally adapting to the fact that there's so much data available that you can, and analytics that you can get on stuff, that you can actually, people can just make stuff that just happens to be good.
Right.
And get the money, get the reimbursement that they deserve. So I don't know. I think it's really, I'm very sad to hear that you had creative projects that, but it's so cool that you were able to keep. I hope those decisions get easier in the future. And
I think now that I've done it once, I think the first time, especially with that amount of money involved and energy and time, and not just that, it was more really my sources that swayed me towards deciding not to go with them, but also at the same time made me feel guilty for not putting out their story and not having a platform to put it on. And so that was the part where I was really in mixed feelings about it. But now, having made a decision once, I don't think it'd be harder in the future, because I've already set my own standard to what I'm willing to put up, to what I'm willing to do for a story that I feel passionate about. But the thing is too is, I've always been a freelancer. I've never had a say-shining or whatever guaranteed job at any kind of company I've done, even though I have worked for companies as a full-time employee. I was with Reuters in Japan for about 3.5 years, Japan Times for a year, almost a full-time. And the thing that's been very surprising, I built my website at the end of last year, and a lot of people have contacted me through their website, like reputable organizations have contacted me through their website and have been like we're looking for this story or that, we're looking for this information, and like paid work. And I was kind of like, really, I still am figuring it out, but I was surprised at what high demand there is for, there's not a high demand for content, but there's a very high demand for a certain kind of content, especially for online news, which is something that I produce very well. So I'm not as worried as I was before.
Yeah.
As I was like a year ago when I was really like, oh, maybe I should take this job that I've just been offered. And then now I'm kind of like, I think I just have to learn how to balance my checkbook, and I need to invest in some couple better pieces of equipment. And now that I'm getting the hang of it, the first year was very painful, very painful. I'm still getting through it. Second year is much more optimistic.
Here's the thing, and this isn't something I plan to live off. I just love being around creative people myself, and for me, so I get the buzz off that, and I get the buzz off doing that in my small time. But I really think that the investment that you've spent in doing lots and lots of different things, and having confidence in your own judgment about, what's good content and what's the right way to do things. I don't think the people who have gone along with, the kind of confused way that media's been trying to tackle a lot of things in the last few years are in a very good position right now, because everything is coming around now to, I'm sure they reach out to you because they see your breakdancing Indians and your people in Kosovo and stuff like that, and they think, well, this person picks out just really interesting, this is fresh, this is interesting stuff, this isn't someone who's just doing stuff to order, but that everyone else is, this isn't clickbait articles. And ultimately that's the stuff that has shelf life and that has value, right, in a market where if you're doing something about clickbait type stuff, the 24-hour internet cycles, that stuff is just noise, and very quickly it becomes internet noise. But stuff which can actually stand out and have its own existence is something which, short term doesn't have that boom that, that a lot of the big media are very focused on right now, but it's what has long term, you're going to get more out of it, commercially as well. So I can totally understand why people would come knocking on your door, and why having that kind of integrity about that kind of thinking is something which I think has you in a really good position going forward.
So I actually, I signed up for this company like 2 years ago, actually. It's called Manetto. It's basically like I don't know, I'll explain it. It's just like a job ad thing that comes to my mailbox every day, but I'm locked into daily jobs. And it's things like, it's like things like, folding, what do you call it? Making beds at a hotel for a day, or washing dishes, or restaurants, or dishwashing, or box cutting boxes apart in a factory for a day. And it'll have like what the job description is, what you need to bring, how much the pay is, and then it's like pay on site, or pay within a week, or pay the month after. And
how do you find this?
I was I was at a point where I was just like, I really need a job, but I don't want to commit to a long-term job because I feel like this other thing is going to work out. And so I had actually done it twice, where I worked in a factory in Saitama, and I was putting together lunch boxes, and putting them into boxes, and it wasn't that bad. And then I've been really blessed that I haven't had to need quick cash since that time. Even at the time, I didn't really need it, but I was like thinking, like, I don't know, I was preparing for a more worst case scenario. But I haven't, even though I haven't used that site, I haven't answered any of the job ads, and it comes every day in my mailbox twice a day. I'm still subscribed to it because I just look at it and I'm like, yeah, there's 7,000 yen right there waiting for me. There's 10,000 yen waiting for me. There's, I could dress up as the character for Chofu City for half the day on an 80-degree day. Like, there's sometimes some of the job ads are very bizarre. Some of them are simple as washing dishes, some as waitressing. But I look at that and it's kind of like, for me, it's a little bizarre little thing I do for myself. But for me, it's just this reminder to myself that if it's just about money, there's always money to be made. And if it's just about paying my bills, or something comes up and I just really need cash, there's so many ways to make money. I don't have to be in a full-time job. I could just do that for a couple of days and have enough money to pay some of my bills. And though I haven't had to use it, knock on wood, in a year, I haven't unsubscribed to it because it just is like a reminder to myself that there are always options, no matter what I may think.
So what is that? What is that you subscribe to?
It's I think I can find it in my inbox.
Can I ask?
It's called Manetto. It's basically like I don't know. I'm signed up. Like, they have like short-term jobs and full-time jobs as well. It's like not a recruiting agency or a employment agency.
It sounds a lot like when I was at university in New Zealand. There was student job search, and there was a lot of like day stuff, like go and clean up a sports stadium after a day, like with 2 people, or go and I did that for. I mean, before I was 25, I did that sort of thing a lot. I haven't done it since then, but
Yeah.
hearing what you were describing is what I did a lot at university. But that's really cool.
It's one of my equal. I mean, I have a couple little things that I try to do to like keep myself, like when I'm having bad days or I'm frustrated or I'm questioning what I do, and that's one of them. But I have some other stuff I do. Like I always tell people, like I'm a very good networker. I'm not a naturally social person, but I'm good at socializing on behalf of getting things done. And I always tell people the 3 things I always do is, one is I always show up with snacks to meetings. My mom really likes to bake cookies, so I always show up with cookies, and then saying my mom made these cookies just changes the dynamic of the entire meeting. I show up to meetings like with like heads of companies. I'm like, my mom made these cookies, here you are, and it just changes the entire dynamic. I still write handwritten thank you cards.
That's so good and so effective, and I'm so crap at that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I really admire people who can do that.
I try to send out like you know, whatever, especially when I travel a lot, when I stay at people's homes or when I have a really good meeting, I send them. And the third thing that I do that I find to be extremely effective is I still, I make short videos, like 15-second videos for people. Usually once a week, someone I saw that did a cool thing or had a neat project or something, I'll send them a short video, or I'll send them an article that relates to some topic they were talking about. I'll be like, hey, I saw you talk. I remember we talked about this, and just remind me of this article I read, and I'll send it along just to kind of keep a conversation going, because I'm not good at reaching out. I need a purpose to reach out. I'm not one of those people who just like goes up to people and is like, hey, what's up? So those are my 3 things that like I actually have written down somewhere to remind me to do them. Like I actually need like to-do lists like that kind of thing. Otherwise, I would be perfectly happy just staying by myself all the time and reading a book and like trolling through the Twitter and stuff, like, because I'm not a naturally social person. But being a freelancer, being a freelancer requires a social personality, which I don't have naturally, and I have to work on all the time. And I'm a supremely awkward human being. I'm so awkward. Like, I'm just like, oh, I'm so awkward. Why am I such a geek? Without the tech savvy being one, it's even more awkward. Like, I can't even like hang out with the geeky, awkward people because I'm not that tech savvy.
I remember there was you do get drama in the YouTube community. I remember there was once a bitter YouTuber who, I don't know, he said something dumb. I mean, occasionally people make, videos where they say stupid things. There's enough people saying enough things at once that occasionally really stupid things come out. I think I remember the person said something anti-gay once or something like that, and everyone around me came out and made videos condemning that person and how could you and all this sort of stuff. Right. The person said, "Oh, this is all of you cool kids just ganging up on me." And everyone kind of watched it and thought, we felt sorry for him, but he was a bigot. But but at the same time, everyone kind of responded and said, "Wait a minute, I don't think in my entire life I've ever been called a cool kid. Well, this is awesome." This is just like an accumulation of very awkward people who somehow manage to make themselves appear different in this world. I mean, it is funny. I think normal well-adjusted people have trouble being engaged while talking, looking into a lamp and talking to a webcam. Mm-hmm. But awkward geeky people have no problem with it whatsoever. I don't differentiate between a camera lens and a human being. I mean, it appeals to my kind of quasi Asperger's that I don't actually have to talk to an actual face. So it's kind of, I think this medium is like made for us to be more successful. But awkwardness works.
That's how I feel about Twitter. I mean, for me, Twitter has the same function. It's kind of like, I don't have to. But I've made so many really good friends through Twitter, which is the kind of bizarre part. Some of my closest friends are people I met on Twitter, which people find so strange. I wish I could invite one of my friends to this conversation right now. Him and I are like good friends. We create together, and we met on Twitter. But it took us we're both like very conservative, like pretty guarded people, and it took us a long time to become friends. And we probably became friends. We're like very close now. Like I'm close with his family, and he's cool with mine. And it's kind of like, wow, like. Without Twitter, where would we be?
Twitter really was, and it came into its own on the 311 thing for me. But I completely agree; it's the awesomest thing ever. And the way I really, every time I hear that Twitter is changing to become more like Facebook, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Just the way it's such an awesome platform. They're not trying to, you know, they're not trying to make money off every tweet. They're not trying to track down all the personal information on every one of us to sell to advertisers. Just simple, and it's just such a platform for anyone wanting to do, you know, anything or just have any type of conversation. Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. We are like 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Oh wow.
Well, we're well over time, but I can tell. If it's okay with you, I'd love to get you back on again sometimes, because I can just tell. We obviously, I had bullets, I had points. I was like cram learning for having you on. Like, oh my god, what if I talk to her and I don't have anything to talk about? And clearly, that's not a problem. So I love it. If it's okay with you to get you back on again sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to. I feel bad that I couldn't. I don't know how to look at the comments. I don't know what anyone said, and I didn't know if I should respond. And I wanted to say hello to people commenting, or if they had questions and answer questions.
Are you still good?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, of course you're good. Let me in the sidebar. I'm going to put the link to the video so that you can click. If you've got a browser, you're looking at a working, functional computer at the moment, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you can click on that link and open up that page so you can see the comments.
Oh, okay.
If it's okay with you, why don't we do it for 10 minutes? We'll do to the top of the hour. Till midnight. People comment time. If you've got comments, questions, say hello to Mariko. We are now focused. We are now, this is actually, I was just saying to her before, this is like the format of the show that I've always aspired to and never achieved once in 7 years.
I'm trying to get there.
On the comments and talk to us. We will awkwardly sustain conversation while actually paying attention to the comments now. There's a 40-second lag that we have to wait for people to react, and then probably another 20 seconds of people going, they don't know what to say. But
okay, and so now I'm like really excited, but I feel like the second like you ask people to ask you questions, that's the moment everyone goes quiet, and then there's that awkward silence and dot.
I'm going to start calling in the names. Kofai, New Zealander. Question for Mariko. By the way, I saw you talking about Campbell, who actually started just after I left. But yes, I read about that. Oh, there you go. Kofai, New Zealander, is saying, hi, Mariko. And Kofai, I think is a she, is New Zealand time, so 4 hours ahead. So wait a minute, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning for you.
Wow, night owl.
Yes, but I can't believe, honestly, there are some, by the way, there's an awesome geographic spread of people watching this at the moment. You get people Middle East, people very early in America, people midday in UK, and people ahead in Australia and New Zealand as well. Hajimemashite, Foghart. Okay, Kofai, question for you from Kofai. Who is the most famous person that you've worked with?
Worked with or interviewed?
Let's say both.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've interviewed a lot of famous people. I've interviewed, I interviewed the cabinet secretary of Japan.
You tweeted about that. Yes.
I interviewed him.
It was Suga. It wasn't one of the previous ones. It was the current one.
Yes, it was like a year and a half ago. But people that are much more famous than that would be Tom Cruise, Will Smith, Sarah Wayne Callies of The Walking Dead. I had a fantastic interview with her.
Yeah.
She was a very, very intelligent woman. Who else recently? I was in LA recently, so I did quite a few red carpets. Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, George Miller, George Clooney, anyone who was in Brad Bird. I cover a lot of red carpets when I'm in LA, so I spend a lot of time, but it's not really that it's like speed dating, to be very honest, because they just kind of come through and they spin you around and they bring you the next person. And
so you speed dated Will Smith and Tom Cruise.
Basically, actually, Will Smith is really cool. I've interviewed him twice. Really, really nice person, and I actually got to interview him with his son Jaden because they were here for the film After Earth. I actually interviewed them in Japan.
Yeah.
And then Will Smith is a really, really nice person. There's other people. I've also interviewed, I wish I could know their names, but like powerful political people as well, like the head of the World Bank. I've interviewed the head of, I've interviewed someone that was running the Afghan conference.
Quite a few people. Did you fangirl over any celebs?
You know what? Okay, so I've only once ever.
Oh.
I'm not really impressed by celebrities. I get much more impressed by like. I used to tour with different artists, and like for example, there's an R&B singer named Lloyd who used to be quite famous back in the day, and his videographer. I fangirled over his videographer because we were just going back and forth talking. But in terms of like famous people, I don't know if anyone watches True Blood. There's an actor called Alexander Skarsgård, absolutely stunningly beautiful human being, from Sweden, I think. And he was here. He was here in Japan for the world premiere of that horrible film, that boat on the ocean, and I think it was like Battleship. That was the name of the film.
Oh, that's terrible.
I did the entire red carpet, no problem. Tons of famous people coming up and down. And for some reason, Alexander Skarsgård came up, and I blacked out. I have no recollection of the interview. It has never happened to me in my entire life of any interview I've ever done. But I completely backed out. Hold on for 1 second.
So something urgent going on there. I should wrap this up a couple more minutes. Ronin Ushinawa, maybe this is a good time about the coming to Japan. How does one go from tourist to a work visa, you're asking? There's probably a question which maybe you're not sort of all set up for. There's a question about how does one go from a tourist to a work visa? Honestly, you come on a tourist visa, you get a job. You get a sponsor.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a Japanese citizen, so it doesn't.
So I can answer that one. So I was just while you were running away, I was just going to say I'll answer that very quickly. Find a sponsor who will sponsor you for a work visa. It takes 3 months for them to process the application. You have to go outside of the country while you're to go and pick up the visa from the embassy in your home country, and then fly back. And I did that. I came over on tourist visa, got a job, went back, waited for 3 months, picked up the visa, came. But you can do it. But yes. That's how I got started.
Very bureaucratic. They make you go home to get your visa.
Yeah. So people are saying, well, no, I shouldn't say this, but battle shit. So apparently the most starstruck Ronin Ushinawa has ever been is running into Tim Robbins in a park in New York. That is the cool thing about America, is that, although for me as well, even in Japan, just running into, I've been starstruck. The most starstruck I've ever been is I went to Ageha just when it was first opened, and I was a DJ in New Zealand, and I played student radio, I did drum and bass and stuff like that, and I got a bunch of vinyl and set up and everything. I was with my friends. We went to Ageha too early. We went at like 10 o'clock, but the event started at midnight. I used to live near there, and we got there before the buses were going. So there's no one around. It was a brand new club. I'm looking at it for the first time, seeing the sound system and everything. And I just suddenly run into Toa Te right in front of me. And I'm
excellent DJ, excellent DJ.
I'm the biggest fan of Toa Te. And I was with my friends and the two Aussie clubbers and whatever. I was like, I live this far away from him in front of me. I said, oh my God, that's Toa Te. And he was walking around. He suddenly turned around. He looked at me like this. And that's when obviously you're supposed to start talking to him. But I was just like, and then he just kept on walking, and I never got to talk to him.
You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I ran into David Villar, who is a huge football soccer player. I was covering the FIFA Club World Cup in 2011. I don't know anything about soccer. I was lost, like in the catacombs underneath the stadium, trying to find the press room. I turned a corner, and he was on a stretcher. It was after he got injured on the field, and then people on the stretcher obviously were also holding the stretcher were also lost. So I turned the corner, they're by themselves, like carrying it through these underneath the stadium, and I look at them and they look at me, and then he looks at me and I'm looking down, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. And I'm just like, and I look at him, I was like, are you okay? He's like, no, not really. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear. And then they're just like, I could hear the Japanese guys talking to themselves, and they're obviously lost. And I just said to them, I was like, I think you're trying to go that way. And they're like, okay. And then it split, and then I remember going back up and seeing my colleague, and they were just like, I was like, I just saw some soccer player on a stretcher. And they're like, did you just see David Villar? I think that's his name, who's apparently one of the most famous soccer players in the world. I think he won like the Golden Foot or something like that. So very awkward. Because I know how you feel when you're just like, I don't know what to do.
Yes,
awkward moment.
It happens, brain freeze. We've done a solid 1.5 hours, and I can tell we could probably do it again. So wonderful having you on. And obviously Dave knew what he was talking about, setting us up. So thank you for this. Everyone, I mean, just go and definitely check out Mariko's Twitter feed. I've enjoyed following it for the last few weeks, actually, for a couple of months now. Awesome homepage, the documentary stuff. I'm going to go and watch the Indian breakdances after this. Yeah, just also awesome person and kind of a fresh perspective, but someone also making a living doing something I know a lot of people who are watching this are themselves interested in doing and very cool person. So thank you for coming on. And run again sometime.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching. I'm new to this, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The awkwardness never subsides. It's always just.
No, but I feel a little bit less awkward. Next time might be more awkward.
It helps.
It kind of comes and goes.
If you hang around people more awkward than you, I think it helps with confidence. So yes.
Thank you. Please invite me back again so I feel more confident.
Definitely. And the good news is that Mr. Cordy Chep is identifying you, I think, as one of the normal people. So that's good.
Thank you. Yay.
Okay, so thank you. I'll see you guys again next week. So come and check out 2.5. Oh, so quick thing. 2.5 Oyajis is restarting 11 p.m. on Saturdays, and it's going to be a Saturday show from now on, although I will be keeping this show. I'm switching Wednesday nights to being all the shows I ever wanted to do but never had the time to do. So starting from June, the first week of the month, I'm going to be doing with Steve Miller from Asia News Weekly podcast, and we're going to be talking about Asia news stuff because I'm a news geek and I love talking about news, and he's just like the most knowledgeable Asian news guy you've ever run into. And we're going to do a show together first week. Second week will be a Japanese show, which I'll do on my Japanese channel. Third week, I'm going to do a show on YouTube creation, introducing new channels, YouTube tech, and making video stuff. And the fourth week is going to be another Japanese show. And and tomorrow, in fact, I've actually just got authorization. I've got clearance on a video of a new series that a sneak preview. I did a sneak preview clip, which just got authorized. So I'm about to set that live. Probably tonight. What the hell? I'll just do it after the show. So if you're interested, check out my feed. A video is about to go live. A preview of a new series, which is going to have a bunch of episodes. It's going to be on a weekly show, which is really, really, really cool. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a secret. And so look out for that. And I will see all of you guys again soon. And thank you again for being a really, and no, it's not called Hage Oyaji News. Not Birito. Thank you for that. So yes, indeed, cool guest. Thank you for coming on, and see you again soon. And see you guys again later.
Good night, everyone. Yes, me. See you again.